The Bronze Age, spanning roughly from 3000 to 1200 BCE, was a period of significant technological advancement and cultural exchange. The advent of bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, revolutionized warfare and agriculture. This era witnessed the rise of powerful empires and complex trade networks that spanned continents. From the fertile valleys of the Nile to the rugged mountains of Anatolia, a tapestry of interconnected civilizations flourished. These societies, despite their differences, were bound together by trade, diplomacy, and shared cultural practices. The discovery and use of bronze led to the creation of more effective tools and weapons. This, in turn, facilitated agricultural surplus and population growth. As societies grew in size and complexity, so too did their interactions with one another. Trade routes, both overland and maritime, crisscrossed the ancient world, carrying not only goods but also ideas and technologies. This interconnectedness fostered a period of unprecedented cultural exchange and innovation. However, this delicate web of interdependence also sowed the seeds for future conflict. By the Late Bronze Age, around 1500 to 1200 BCE, three major powers dominated the eastern Mediterranean: the Egyptians, the Hittites, and the Mycenaeans. Each of these civilizations commanded vast resources and wielded significant military might. Egypt, ruled by pharaohs considered to be living gods, controlled a prosperous empire stretching from the Nile Delta to Nubia in the south. The Hittites, based in central Anatolia, forged a powerful empire through military conquest and sophisticated ironworking technology. The Mycenaeans, a warrior culture centered in mainland Greece, established a network of palace-centered states throughout the Aegean. They are known for their impressive fortifications, such as the citadel of Mycenae, and their epic poetry, including the Iliad and the Odyssey, which may contain echoes of the conflicts that brought about the end of the Bronze Age. These three great powers, along with numerous smaller states, interacted through a complex web of diplomacy, trade, and occasional warfare. They negotiated treaties, exchanged gifts, and formed alliances, often against one another. This intricate balance of power, however, proved to be precarious and susceptible to disruption. Despite their cooperation, the great powers of the Late Bronze Age were also rivals, competing for resources, territory, and influence. The growing interconnectedness of the Bronze Age world, while fostering prosperity, also created new vulnerabilities. Economic interdependence meant that disruptions in one region could have ripple effects across the entire system. Moreover, political tensions, fueled by ambition and mistrust, simmered beneath the surface of diplomatic relations. One example of this tension was the rivalry between the Egyptians and the Hittites for control of Syria. This strategically important region, a crossroads of trade routes, was a source of constant friction between the two empires. Another flashpoint was the Aegean Sea, where the Mycenaeans competed with each other and with other powers for control of trade and resources. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries created a volatile geopolitical landscape in which even seemingly minor disputes could escalate rapidly into major conflicts. The most famous conflict of the Late Bronze Age is undoubtedly the Trojan War, immortalized in Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. While the Trojan War is often considered a myth, archaeological evidence suggests that there may be some historical basis to the legend. The traditional date for the Trojan War is the 13th century BCE, placing it squarely within the period of the Late Bronze Age collapse. According to legend, the war began when Paris, a prince of Troy, abducted Helen, the wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. The Greeks, led by Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, launched a massive expedition to Troy to avenge this insult and reclaim Helen. The ensuing conflict lasted for 10 years and involved many heroes and gods. While the historicity of specific events and characters remains debated, the Trojan War, whether entirely mythical or rooted in actual events, reflects the complex interplay of factors that contributed to the Late Bronze Age collapse. Section 5. The Catalogue of Ships, Evidence of a Wider Conflict. One intriguing aspect of the Iliad is the Catalogue of Ships, a passage that lists the contingents of the Greek army that sailed to Troy. The sheer number and geographical spread of these contingents suggest that the Trojan War, if it did occur, might have involved a significant portion of the Mycenaean world. Some scholars have even hypothesized that the Trojan War was merely one theater in a much wider conflict that engulfed the entire eastern Mediterranean. This wider conflict, often referred to as the Bronze Age World War, would have involved not only the Mycenaeans and the Trojans, but also the Egyptians, the Hittites, and numerous other kingdoms and peoples. Proponents of this theory point to archaeological evidence of widespread destruction and disruption throughout the eastern Mediterranean around the end of the Late Bronze Age. While the exact nature and extent of this hypothetical conflict remain unknown, the possibility of a Bronze Age world war underscores the interconnectedness of the Late Bronze Age world and the potential for localized conflicts to escalate into wider conflagrations. At Section 6, the Sea Peoples, Raiders from the Sea. Adding to the chaos of the late 13th and early 12th centuries, BCE were the enigmatic Sea Peoples. These seafaring raiders, whose origins remain shrouded in mystery, launched a series of devastating attacks against coastal settlements throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Egyptian texts describe them as a coalition of different groups with names like the Shurden, the Lukka, and the Peliset. Their motives for these attacks remain unclear, but they may have been driven by a combination of factors, including climate change, famine, and displacement caused by conflicts elsewhere. The Sea Peoples possessed advanced naval technology and fighting skills which allowed them to overwhelm the defenses of even powerful empires. Their raids disrupted trade routes, plundered cities, and contributed to the destabilization of the Late Bronze Age world. While the Sea Peoples were eventually repelled, their attacks left a lasting mark on the collective memory of the ancient world. Section 7. Collapse and Transformation, the End of the Bronze Age. The combined effects of internal strife, external pressures, and environmental factors proved too much for the late Bronze Age civilizations to withstand. By the early 12th century BCE, the once mighty empires of the Egyptians, the Hittites, and the Mycenaeans had collapsed or been significantly weakened. Major cities were destroyed or abandoned, trade networks broke down, and writing systems disappeared in many regions. The interconnected world of the Late Bronze Age fragmented into smaller, more isolated entities. The reasons for this collapse are complex and multifaceted. Climate change, in the form of prolonged droughts and colder temperatures, may have played a role by disrupting agricultural production and triggering migrations. Overpopulation and the overexploitation of resources could have further strained these societies. The interconnectedness of the Late Bronze Age world, while a source of strength during times of prosperity, became a liability in times of crisis, as shocks in one region could quickly cascade throughout the system. Section 8. The Aftermath, a Dark Age and the Rise of New Powers. The collapse of the Bronze Age ushered in a period of upheaval and transformation, often referred to as a Dark Age. This period, characterized by reduced literacy, population decline, and a decrease in long-distance trade, lasted for several centuries. However, it was not simply a time of decline and chaos. Out of the ashes of the old order, new societies and empires emerged. In Greece, the Mycenaean civilization gave way to the less centralized but no less vibrant world of the Greek city-states. In the Levant, the Philistines, believed to be one of the Sea Peoples, established themselves along the coast. The collapse of the Hittite Empire created a power vacuum in Anatolia, which was eventually filled by new kingdoms, including the Phrygians and the Lydians. The ancient Near East witnessed the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which would come to dominate the region in the following centuries. Section 9. Echoes of the Past. The enduring legacy of the Bronze Age collapse. The collapse of the Bronze Age serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of civilizations and the interconnectedness of human history. It demonstrates that even the most powerful empires are not immune to the forces of change, whether environmental, social, or political. The events of the late Bronze Age collapse also highlight the importance of resilience and adaptation in the face of adversity. The collapse, while devastating in the short term, ultimately paved the way for the emergence of new societies and empires. The lessons learned from this period continue to resonate today, reminding us of the importance of understanding the past in order to navigate the challenges of the present and the future. The echoes of the Bronze Age collapse can be seen in our own time as we grapple with issues such as climate change, resource scarcity, and geopolitical instability.